Hi guys, James at RampantLionReviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one we are going to head over to Germany once again, and we're going to continue on with this little mini series of German beer reviews that I've been doing for you on the channel over the last few videos. Now for this review we are going to return to a brewery that's featured on the channel a couple of times before. These guys are quite an interesting brewery because they are a very small kind of regional outfit, but their beers seem to have reached a few different countries. The three beers that I've had from this brewery before were ones that I actually came across in Sweden, but this is one that I found back home in the motherland of Scotland. But the beer itself is a style that I very much enjoy, one of my favourite German styles, but you don't come across these all that often, and because I like them, whenever I see them I jump on them and review them for you here on the channel. But the beers that I had from this brewery before were really quite nice, so I'm really curious to see what their take on this particular style is. So needless to say, I'm very curious to see what this beer is going to have in store for us. Hopefully it's another good beer. Hopefully it makes for an interesting review, and as always I hope that you guys watching this one enjoy my take on it as well. So yeah, for this review then we are going to head to a little place called Teisendorf, which you'll find in the very southeastern part of Bavaria in the south of Germany, and we're going to have a look at another beer from Privatbrauerei M.C. Wieninger. So this one is the Impulsator. It comes in at 7.5% ABV, and this one is their Doppelbock. So yeah, Doppelbocks, as you may well know if you've been watching the channel for a good length of time, are one of my favourite German beer styles. I'm a sucker for the big, brown malty beers, and Doppelbock certainly fits into that category. But these are of course lager beers, which means low temperature fermentation, bottom fermenting yeast, but they are one of the stronger examples of lager beers that you're going to come across. These are usually released around kind of Christmas time, so I have been sitting on this beer for a couple of months in fact, because I hadn't been home to actually review it for you. But yeah, needless to say, really excited to try this one, curious to see what Wieninger's take on the beer is going to be, so let's crack on and see what this one is going to have in store for us. The Impulsator, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, Doppelbock, from Privatbrauerei M.C. Wieninger in Teisendorf in Bavaria. So, as always with my reviews then, I'll tell you a little bit about the brewery before we taste the beer. If you want to get straight to the tasting though, just fast forward. All the usual links can be found in the video description below. That's the brewery website, the link to my other reviews that I've done from Privatbrauerei M.C. Wieninger before, and we will no doubt add more to that list at some point in the near future. But if you want to see more reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The support that you give is massively appreciated. Remember, you can go into the channel homepage and search for beer using the geography tagging system. Just use the little search bar, put in your hometown, state, county, whatever you like. If I've reviewed beers from the area that you search for, they will pop up. Failing that though, you can check out the playlist of beers from different countries. You'll find this one in the German playlist along with a number of other things, and we will continue to add to that over the next wee while. We do still have a few other German beers to work our way through, so those will be quite interesting. But yeah, let's crack on then and have a little chat about Privatbrauerei M.C. Wieninger. So this brewery, as I've mentioned to you already, are based in Teisendorf, Teisendorf, in southeastern Bavaria, just to the northwest of Berchtesgaden, and it's actually very close to Salzburg in Austria. It's probably fair to say that that is the closest major city. But documents mention a brewery in Teisendorf around the year 1600, and apparently this brewery was taken into the Archbishopdom of Salzburg in 1666 owing to disputes between them and the owners. But fast forward a little bit to 1813, and after secularisation had taken place, the brewery was bought by Philipp Wieninger, who is from Trautmannsdorf, and his son Max Christian took over the brewery, and the official name of the brewery can be traced back to him, hence Privatbrauerei M.C. Wieninger. So the company has since passed through 7 generations of his family, and over the generations they've become something of a kind of brewing dynasty, if you like, and they've owned various breweries and restaurants in different places such as Wilshofen, Dachau, Fürstenzell, Pilsting and Munich itself. But today the company is managed by Christian Wieninger and Andreas Brugmann, and the current brewmaster is Bernhard Löw, and they produce somewhere in the region of 100,000 hectolitres of beer per year. So it's probably fair to describe this brewery as a sort of regional brewery. You know, a lot of Germans, if you actually talk to Germans, they'll talk about like you know, a little brew pub. They'll talk about city breweries and regional breweries and things like this. So I think it probably is fair with that size of volume, 100,000 hectolitres, which is about 10 million litres. I think it is probably fair to describe these guys as a fairly, you know, a regional brewery. Correct me on that in the comment section below though if I'm wrong. But as of August 2023, when I'm filming this review for you, these guys have produced 90 different kinds of beer according to Untappd. And like I said to you earlier, most of the beers these guys produce are the traditional German styles. I think it was a Märzen we had from them before. We did have like a Maibock or something, if I remember correctly, and I forget what the third one was. But yeah, I was just very curious to see what their Doppelbock was all about, because you can find some really good Doppelbocks from some of the more unknown or lesser known breweries in Germany, in fact. But yeah, that is everything I can tell you about Privatbrauerei M.C. Wieninger. If you want to learn a little bit more about these guys, you can of course check out the brewery website. You can see some really nice pictures of their facility, which is really quite modern, I have to say. It's quite impressive. Or you can follow them on Facebook and Instagram to keep up to date with all the latest goings on. And you can check out the Rate Beer, Untappd and Beer Advocate pages to learn a little bit more about all the different beers that these guys have done. So yeah, let's go on then and have a little look at the beer itself. So I'll just let you have a wee look at the artwork on this one before we open it up. So as you can see, this beer incidentally is in quite a different bottle from the ones that we've seen from Wieninger before. This is the first one we've seen from Wieninger that has the kind of old school pop top on it. But yeah, you see the artwork is really nice. There you can see the ram on this one, we would say, or the goat. So the story behind the goat is the fact that the Bock styles of lager come from the German city of Einbeck, and when the Einbeckers took their beer down to Munich, the Münchners made fun of their accent and started calling the beers Bocks, because yeah, it was just that. And of course Bock in the Bavarian dialect meant goat, and that's why you have goat on many of these labels now. But yeah, gebraut nach dem bayerischen Reinheitsgebot von 1516, yeah, brewed in accordance with the Bavarian purity law of 1516. Höchste Braukultur aus Teisendorf. So would that be highest brewing culture in Teisendorf? So yeah, Teisendorf. I keep mixing that up. Too tired when I'm filming these reviews, guys. But like I said to you earlier, this one comes in at 7.5% ABV. It is kind of a tradition with these Doppelbocks to name them with something ending in or. So in this case, it's Impulsator. But yeah, 7.5% Doppelbock. This one, we mentioned that this is a lager style earlier, and I'll just let you have a wee look at the little top label on this one, which is quite nice. And you can also see on the pop top there, you have. I don't know if it is meant to be MC or what it actually is, but yeah, it is quite nice looking. So yeah, let's get this guy out into the glass then and see what we have. The Impulsator, 7.5% Doppelbock from Privatbrauerei M.C. Wieninger in Teisendorf in Bavaria in the south of Germany. Let's do this. So here we are. I tell you something, you can see as soon as you open this, you can smell the brown sugar. Ooh. It does smell very nice. There we are. Oh. That went okay. You see this one, that's one of the things with these bottles, you do get a nice little bit of carbonation out of them, but you can see that's fading quite quickly in this one. So, yeah, you can see that when the beer poured, it had a good little bit of a quarter to a 1/3 finger of a frothy, I would have said fawn coloured head, but that has faded away very quickly to be a very thin foamy layer, just a few wisps on top, and you've got that nice kind of ring around the edge of the glass. I'm not sure how well that's going to show up on the camera there, but yeah, you can see that it looks, yeah, looks like a kind of fawn colour, this one, but yeah, obviously that head faded away very quickly in this one for some reason. I'm not quite sure exactly why. Yeah, anyway, so in terms of the colour of this beer then, you can see that it's poured a lovely sort of dark chestnutty colour, and this is what you would expect from the Doppelbock style. So remember, the colour of your beer is dependent on a few things. One, the type of malts that you use. This goes a long way to determining your EBC rating. 2, length of your wort boil is also going to play a role, because the longer you boil the wort, the more the sugars caramelise, and thus you get a darker colour of beer. But any barrel aging that you do or adjuncts you put into the beer will affect its colour too. But when it comes to German lager beers and those that are brewed in accordance with the Reinheitsgebot, you don't often have to care about that, to be quite honest with you. It's mainly American brewed doppelbocks where they might add in some fruits and do a little bit of barrel aging and stuff like that. But yeah, the beer has a little bit of a kind of natural haze to it, so probably unfiltered. But it does look very, very nice. Not too much in the way of visible carbonation, but there was a fair little bit of carbonation escaping from this one when we opened up. It might well just be that the beer was getting toward the end of its best by date, and it says, yeah, best before 26th of the 10th 2023. So yeah, it still has a couple of months left on it in fairness, but still it might just be that. But yeah, I don't know if there's anything else we really need to say about this beer in terms of its appearance. It looks pretty much as you would expect of a doppelbock, really. So let's have a wee look at the aroma then and just see what this one is going to have in store for us. Oh yeah, that smells really nice actually. It does give you everything that you would expect of the style. You've got the lovely kind of brown bready characters in there, you've got a bit of brown sugar, a little bit of a noble hop character, and you've also just got that little bit of kind of fruity character coming out of it too. Beautiful, beautiful smelling beer, this one, so it gets a big thumbs up from me. Yeah, let's just break the aroma of the beer down then and describe it for you a little bit more in depth. I think this is going to be really nice. Yeah. So the backbone of this beer, obviously you're getting lots of different German brown breads in this one. So for me, the backbone of the beer, you've got a lovely little bit of a kind of you have got a lovely little bit of that kind of smooth rye bready bread crust just forming the backbone of the beer. Further forward on this one, you've got a good little bit of you get a little touch of woodiness out of it. There are little elements of nutty character in there, but yeah, there's a nice kind of sweet rye bready type character coming out of the beer. So yeah, lovely kind of sweet rye bready character. You've got a little bit of a kind of wholemeal brown bready character in there as well. And yeah, it smells quite layered. So you've got a slightly stronger rye bread, definitely some sweeter kind of German pumpernickel brown bread in there, and also a bit of a more kind of wholemeal brown bready sort of thing. This is the thing that you always get from doppelbocks. You always get these different bready layers for sure. So yeah, lovely big kind of different bready layers in this one. You get a little bit more bread crust and nuttiness and woodiness out of this beer the more that you smell of it. But it's absolutely great. It really goes together very, very nicely. Yeah, on top of that, you have some nice kind of brown sugary notes coming out of it. So yeah, for me, the brown sugary side of this beer, it really leans toward a more kind of dry brown sugary character actually, but also at the same time quite oily. And usually if you have these more kind of leathery dry brown sugary notes, it indicates a longer wort boil, particularly if you're talking about imperial stouts and barley wines and things like that. That's, you know, something you should consider. But with this one, I would say you definitely have a little bit of a more leathery brown sugary character in this one. There's also a little bit of a toasty brown sugar in there. Wee touch of like treacle molasses, but definitely a sweeter caramel and a little bit of a more kind of McVitie's digestive biscuity sort of thing. So yeah, good little bit of complexity to the brown sugars in this beer, and that's right up my street. Yeah, this is going to be pretty good, I think, because the aroma is really nice. But definitely one of the kind of drier and kind of it's one of the more brown sugary leaning doppelbocks I think I've come across, and definitely a little bit drier within that regard, but also quite oily as I mentioned. So on the hoppy side of things then with this beer, you've got a lovely little bit of earthiness coming out of this one. It's typical German noble hops, incidentally. I mean, a very popular hop to use with Doppelbock is Northern Brewer, because it will give you these kind of nice fruity characteristics as well. But yeah, you definitely have a smooth little bit of earthiness in this one, so that comes out quite a little bit. So there's a little bit of earthiness in there, you've got a little touch of herbal character for sure. And then beyond that, you have some really nice sort of floral, aromatic-y type things. But for me, it's quite an oily and wet green component this beer has. You do have the typical floral notes in there. You've got a nice little bit of grassy character as well. But yeah, the way that goes together, I think, is it's really quite nice. Yeah, nice little bit of bright floral aromaticity, wet kind of leafy, grassy notes as well. Yeah, I think it goes together really very nicely, so it gets a big thumbs up from me in that particular regard. Yeah, but very typical of the style, I have to say. So on the fruity side of things then, just to round off the aroma, again it's quite typical of what you would expect of the style. For me, there's a good little bit of a, I do get quite a little bit of an oily kind of sultana type note out of this one, maybe a very slightly datey sort of thing. So remember, sultanas, you know, dry, white, green, rapey characters. So definitely a little bit of that going on. Good little bit of kind of oily pear as well, I would say. And it also has a little touch of a kind of phenolic type note to it as well, you know, the kind of cough syrupy, medicinal type thing. So you're getting a wee bit of that kind of cough syrupy, medicinal, fruity character coming out of the beer, which is great. But yeah, on the the fruity side of the beer, you definitely have a little bit of a kind of red fruity character to this one. So there's a wee bit of that going on, a little bit of a red fruity note. Got a little touch of it's kind of slightly figgy. So yeah, a wee touch of a kind of figgy character to it. You also have a little bit of a more kind of blackcurranty, blackberry sort of thing with this one. And yeah, the way that goes together, I think, is really quite nice. So it's quite a blackcurranty, blackberry sort of thing. And yeah, it goes together really nicely in that sense. Yeah, it gets a big thumbs up from me. Yeah, fruity side of this beer, and everything else is good. It's nothing surprising when you think about what style it is, but it is just a very, very nicely done beer in that regard. So I cannot complain, and as I said, this is a style I very much enjoy. But as I always say, take a bit of time to enjoy the aroma of the beer, but I think it's about time that we crack into this one and see what it's all about. So this one is the Impulsator, I'm not sure exactly how to enunciate that, but it's a 7.5% Doppelbock from Privatbrauerei M.C. Wieninger in Teisendorf in southeastern Bavaria in southern Germany. Let's get stuck in. Slàinte, skål, cheers. Oh yeah, that's pretty nice. Now this is quite an interesting one, just because of the way the flavour evolves. Yeah, it is actually. It is quite a. It's quite a dry and grainy Doppelbock, but at the same time, you do get more and more of the kind of brown sugary characters coming out of this one later on. But yeah, the grainy bready character coming out of this is really interesting. Yeah, I do like that about this one though. It is really quite interesting. Yeah, quite a little bit of a kind of grainy, pardon me, quite a little bit of a grainy bread crusty backbone, but other than that you've got the big brown sugary characters in this one. You've also got the different bready layers, a little bit of hoppy bitterness, and also just that kind of oily fruity character as well. So yeah, the way that this goes together, I think, is It's really quite interesting. It's quite different from the other Doppelbocks I've had in recent times. So let's say it gets a bit of a thumbs up from me. Yeah, let's try and break this beer down then and just describe it for you a wee bit more in depth. So, middle third of your palate then. The backbone of the beer, you have got a nice little bit of that kind of rye bready bread crust coming out of this one, so you can feel that there. It's got a little bit more dryness to it as well. You've got a little bit of that dryness and grainy bready character the further into the aftertaste that you go, but then moving further forward from that, you get a wee touch of a more, you do get a little bit of a woody character coming out of the beer too. Yeah, it really is interesting stuff from that perspective. So, yeah, the woody character in this one, I think, is kind of lingers there into the aftertaste. So yeah, you've got that kind of rye bready, bread crusty base, the little bit of the kind of rye bread, the little bit of the woody character sitting further forward on that middle third of the palate, but then you start to get the actual bready layers out of this one. So for me, there is the base layer is like a more caramelized and dense rye bread. Then above that, you start to get a little bit more of a, yeah, you do start to get a little bit more of a kind of like sweet German pumpernickel type bread coming out of this one. It's not quite brown bread, but it's not quite rye bread either. It's kind of somewhere in the middle. I do miss the German. I do really miss the German bakeries from when I lived over there. But yeah, you've got the rye bready layer underneath, the kind of pumpernickel-y bread in the middle. Then above that, you have the kind of more dry. You do have that little bit more of a kind of dry wholemeal brown bready character sitting on top of that. So yeah, above that, the brown sugars really start to come out of this one, and it's interesting. It actually has, above the kind of bready character, I do get quite a little bit of I do actually get quite a little bit of a kind of roasty dry. It's really quite a dry, roasty, brown sugary base there. Then above that, I get that there's like a circle in the middle of your palate. So you've got the roasty, dry, brown sugary layer, and then you've got this little circle in the middle of your palate, which is quite a leathery and dry brown sugar. And usually, that's an indicator of a longer wort boil or something like this. But I don't think it is that in this case. So yeah, roasty brown sugary layer, then the circle of the more leathery kind of notes. But in the dead centre of that middle third of your palate, you can feel a slightly more treacle molasses type note out of the beer, and that is of course the concentration of the alcohol. You know, it's 7.5% ABV, especially with it being a lager beer. You are going to notice a bit of that, so you can feel the kind of concentration of the alcohol in the middle of the that middle third of your palate there. And as you move further out from that, you do get a nice little bit of a kind of sweet caramelly character coming out of it. So you can feel like treacle molasses in the middle, sweeter caramel, then you get a little bit more toasty dry caramel, leathery brown sugary layer, and then yeah, the base of the brown sugars is that really almost roasty, toasty and well fired sort of thing. So yeah, I like the way that goes together in this one, so it gets a thumbs up from me in that regard. Yeah. So on the I think that covers everything we really need to say about the middle third of your palate in this beer, to be honest with you. Yeah. So I think we can leave it at that and go to the back third of your palate. But as I often say, the back third of your palate gives you similar flavours to the middle third of your palate, just at different intensities. But do remember that general trend with the palate that you know, sweeter flavours come out further forward, more dry and bitter flavours come out further back, because that's definitely noticeable here. But yeah, that border region between middle and back third of your palate, you do get a nice little bit of a kind of bready build up in this one. And you can feel there's a little bit of the kind of drier rye bready character in the base and the sweeter pumpernickel and brown bread above that. But then yeah, the base of that back third of the palate, you've got a really nice, as we say, you've got a really nice kind of dry, yeah, you've got that dry kind of almost toasty bread crust there. Then you've got the more rye bready characters above that, which feel a little bit lighter and a little bit more airy. Then you have the kind of pumpernickel bready kind of notes above that, which again feel lighter and more airy. Then you've got the kind of wholemeal brown bready characters sitting above that, which also feel a little bit lighter and more airy. And just creeping over all the top of that, you get some of the toasty brown sugars and some of the more leathery brown sugars. And then above everything else on that back third of the palate, you start to get the more kind of yeasty notes coming out of it. So yeah, for me, the other thing you're getting into the aftertaste for this beer is you do get a little touch of nuttiness coming out of the bready side of things with this one. So that's definitely worth paying attention to. I do like that about this beer. So for me, the kind of the yeasty character you get in this one, it's like a really dense, it is like a really dense kind of like slightly sweet rye bread. It's got a bit more of a kind of graininess around the edge of it and a bit of woodiness there, and then it's just wrapped in this kind of toasty brown sugary character that sits above everything else on that back third of the palate. You can definitely feel that the flavour on the back third of your palate is taller. Then as you move further forward into the middle third of your tongue, it just kind of condenses down and squashes together that little bit more. So yeah, the way that that goes together, I think, is really quite nice. Yeah, interesting. So let's go on to the hoppy side of things then with this beer. The back corners of the palate, you've got a really nice little bit of earthiness in this one here, and the hoppy bitterness in this beer is actually a little bit more prominent, which is interesting, and that kind of is a little bit in keeping with the slightly grainier character that this one has. The more that I drink of this Doppelbock, the more of a grainy character it starts to build. But yeah, nice little bit of a kind of hoppy, nice little bit of a more kind of hoppy earthiness in the back corners of the palate there. As you move further forward with this one, there's a little touch of herbal character, and yeah, as you push further forward toward the front corners of your palate, it gives you a little bit more of a kind of floral aromaticity, but then round the front curve of your tongue, it's a little bit lighter and more grassy. So yeah, kind of interesting there. So these are typical noble hop characters, of course, and like I said earlier, a very popular hop to use with Doppelbocks is Northern Brewer, because it gives you these fruity kind of notes. But yeah, the green component on this one is pretty good actually. I do like how you get a little bit more floralness and a bit more of a kind of grassy character. It's quite a wet, leafy, grassy character that you get out of this one. So yeah. But yeah, it's nice stuff, this one. This beer, it takes a little bit of time just to kind of develop on the palate, I think, and show you its sweeter side of things. But yeah, this one is kind of growing on me. Actually, the more that I drink of it, it was quite grainy in the beginning, but still. So on the on the front third of your palate, then the fruity side of things. So the border region between front third and middle third of your palate, you get a nice little bit of a bready build up in this one. You get the wholemeal, you get the kind of rye bready character underneath, and a bit of a wholemeal and pumpernickel-y note on top in that border region. But yeah, the base of the front third of your palate is rye bready bread crust. It's rye bready bread crust, wholemeal more pumpernickel actually, kind of bread on top, and then you get that nice oily bubble where the juicy fruity esters just roll their way out of the beer. So yeah, the way that that goes together is really nice. So, fruity side of this beer then. At the back of that front third of your palate, you do get a little bit of a... You get a little touch of a... You start to get some of the phenolic notes out of this, to be honest with you. That border region between front third and middle third of your palate is it's almost got a little bit of a Christmas puddingy, kind of cakey type note to it. You get these kind of phenolic, cough syrupy type flavours out of it. But yeah, you do have a little bit of oily plum, a little bit of prune underneath that, and a bit of the kind of datey character. Then as you move further forward, you get a little touch of oily pear, but a juicier fig as well. And as you move into the front half of that front third of your palate, you absolutely have a little bit more of a kind of black currant. Yeah, more of a kind of oily black currant, and I think that rounds off. That really does round off the front third of your palate in this beer. So yeah, a little bit of plum, a little bit of prune, date underneath, oily pear, a little bit of fig, and then black currant. I think that summarises the kind of fruity character from back to front on that middle third of your palate. But really good stuff actually. It's a big thumbs up from me. So yeah, that I think summarises it quite nicely. Yeah. So on the flavour side of things, I think that's everything we need to see. Actually, quite a dry and grainy Doppelbock, but then it sweetens up the further you go into the aftertaste with it too. So yeah, the way the flavours come out in this one is quite different from other Doppelbocks I've had before. But yeah, let's round off this review then with a wee look at the mouthfeel. For me, it's kind of mid-bodied, maybe pushing toward the bottom end of mid-bodied. The carbonation does have a little bit of crispness to it, but like I say, this one I think is getting toward the end of its kind of shelf life, to be honest with you. I think it is getting at that. Maybe that explains a little bit of the more kind of grainy presence that the beer has. Could be something like that. But then yeah, the malty side of the beer, you have, as I say, I would say a little bit of crisp carbonation, but still quite mid-bodied, I think is fair to describe it. IBU wise, I think this is a fairly standard 20-25 IBU beer, which is quite common for German lagers, but you do have a little bit of dryness and graininess from the malt base that could push the perceived bitterness on the beer up a little bit. But yeah, the malt base, as we say, bit of dryness and toastiness underneath, kind of smoothness in the middle from the bready characteristics, then a dry sweetness on top, and that lingers into the aftertaste. You've got a lovely little bit of juicy, fruity character in this one as well, but quite an oily, fruity note, I would say. But yeah, overall, it's quite an interesting one. That's quite different from other Doppelbocks that I've had in recent times, I would say. But yeah, I think we can round off the review with that. This one was the Impulsator, a 7.5% Doppelbock from Privatbrauerei M.C. Wieninger in Teisendorf in the very southeast of Bavaria in southern Germany. So yeah, once again, thank you for watching my beer reviews. Until the next time, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. Let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comments section below. Let me know what your favourite beers are from Privatbrauerei M.C. Wieninger as well. And we will see about returning to these guys again at some point in the very near future. But until then, Slàinte, Skål, cheers, check out my social media, check out theirs, and I'll see you guys again in another review very, very soon. Ciao just now.